Peace everyone, and thank you for coming back. We were talking about Dawood and his son, Suleiman. By the grace of the Almighty Allah, we found out that Adam, and his wife, and Shaitan, came down to the earth, 12,500 years ago, somewhere in Egypt. Just imagine when Suleiman heard it from the jinns, how happy he got. No wonder. Suleiman was praying 7 times a day. There are so much that we still do not know anything about these pyramids. Like, what is behind those closed shafts? I am sure Suleiman left us much more signs, but they are all hidden at the moment. As I mentioned, so-called Egyptologists do not allow other people to excavate around the pyramids. Maybe with the next generation, the Almighty will have more open-minded people, and more knowledgeable, so we could discover more mysteries in that area. The reason people keep saying Egypt is because, in our time, that area called Egypt. There are many places in Egypt, with mysterious buildings, and statues and walls. One of which are these 2 one-piece stone statues in Egypt, called Colossi of Memnon. They are the heaviest statues on earth. Each one weighs 1,300 tons. And the base itself is 500 tons. As you see them here. Now, this statue, at Luxor, has a perfect symmetry, and only modern method could measure it. No one could build a statue like this by hand, with perfect symmetry. Jinns were expert in construction engineering, math, astrology, and carrying heavy loads. Now, let us go to another ancient mysterious place. This time, we go to the Easter Island. A very far away place. There, we find about 887 statues, called moai. These statues were carved from volcanic rocks, weighing from 60 to 250 tons, and they are all looking upward. Meaning, looking at certain stars, or looking at Suleiman flying away. They have been carried from the quarry, across the island, 9 miles away. They are scattered all around the island, and they are all facing inland. But, only 7 of them are gazing out to sea, looking at the horizon of the sunset, at the equinox. Again we recognize Allah's important number 7. Maybe that was the time when Suleiman started to pray 7 times a day. Some of these moais have some kind of a hat, and some don't. They have found mysterious writing in Easter Island, which is very similar to the writings in Mohenjo Daro, in Pakistan, 12,500 miles away. Which no one can read them. They could be the older scripture for those ancient civilizations. Again, no one knows who built these statues, and why. But, we know, now. Thank Allah. Suleiman delivered Allah's message to those people. And they asked for a proof. Then probably next day people woke up, and found those heavy statues all around the island, built by Suleiman's jinns. It seemed like after Suleiman, they started to reject his message, and they turned to some kind of cult. And now, those people called Rapa Nui, and they are the native Polynesians. Seismologist, dug the ground, and found seeds of different kinds, and seeds of fruit trees, and other plants. Which tells us, someday, they had fruits, and grains, but it was lost. Now let us go hundreds of miles across the ocean, to the coast of Peru. Here, we see a giant, carved on the mountain, in Peru. 549 feet long. And it is precisely north to south. Who did it? Why was it carved? Thank Allah we know now, that Suleiman jinns carved it, because Suleiman was going to tell us that he was flying. Now we are in Nazca, Peru. We are going to see several Nazca drawings, on the ground. You won't be able to see them from the ground, even if you are on the top of a hill, but, only by flying. All of these lines must have a special meanings. But, with our limited knowledge at this time, we do not know the meanings of them. All we know is, that Suleiman was flying. Or maybe the angels were giving a flying tour to those people, by Suleiman's wish, in order to be a sign of his messengership. Here, you see pictures of animals on the ground. This is a drawing of monkey, which is 250 feet long. And a drawing of a spider 165 feet long. Here is a beautiful drawing of a hummingbird, 330 feet long. Here is another bird, 405 feet long. And then we see these lines on the ground. No one knows the meaning of them. Some of these perfectly straight lines, stretches for 13 miles long. Here you see these Nazca lines, spreading out through the land. That is a tiny truck on the freeway, so you can sense the scale of these lines. Here are some more lines on the top of the mountains. All of these lines must have special meanings, but with our limited knowledge, at this time we do not know the meanings of them. But for the time being, we know that Suleiman is showing us that he was flying through the whole world, with the help of angels, drivers of the wind, and with his jinns, who work for him, as builders, and birds, in order to work in the cause of Allah, and spread Allah's message throughout the world. That was the perfect plan of the Almighty, Allah. They worked like today's media, and internet, but with a much lower speed. We have to realize that at that time traveling around the world was by walking, or riding, on animals. Therefore, Allah spread his message all around the world, so people would not be able to come up with any excuses. Wasn't it awesome? Allah is the best planner. Subhanallah. Then later on, Allah made traveling easier, between the towns. Although there were some people who refused this blessing of Allah, as the Arabic Quran says. And now, through the internet, you can get any news from any part of the world. And we can visit any place in this world, without even going there. It all because of two numbers, 0 and 1. Subhanallah. Here is what the Arabic Quran says. We have given the sons will be transported by Allah, the scripture, hikmat, and prophethood, and provided them with unpolluted provisions, and we preferred them above all the other people. And we had given them clear commandments. Then, they did not dispute this, until the knowledge had come to them. Because, they transgressed among themselves. Surely, your Lord will judge among them, on the day of resurrection, regarding everything they have disputed. Not far from Nazca, there are 40 more pyramids have been found. But, they have not been excavated yet. Here is one of them. Then we go to Cuzco. There are some walls, built here, with heavy, irregular building block stones, and each one of them is in a different shape, and weight. We see the same thing, again in Sacsayhuman, Peru. The earthquakes are very common in Peru. But these ancient buildings have not been destroyed, although they have been through so many earthquakes. Yet, many new buildings, built with the modern construction technology, which were built far later, have been destroyed through earthquakes, but not these buildings. Then we go to Machu Picchu, in Peru. This small town was built on top of a rocky mountain. They had perfect irrigation throughout the village. It was built with heavy stones, in different shapes. Believe it or not, we even found pyramids, under the water of coast of Okinawa, in Japan. There, spread over an amazing 311 miles on the ocean floor, are the well-preserved remains of an ancient city. In the waters around Okinawa and beyond, to the small island of Yonaguni, divers, located 8 separate locations, divers have found a city, with long streets, grand boulevards, majestic staircases, magnificent archways, monuments, enormous blocks of perfectly cut and fitted stone, all harmoniously welded together in a linear architecture, unlike anything they had ever seen before. Again we see a lion, holding the world with his hand. Now, do you remember the ayat of Surah 21 and 38? It says, Shayateen were diving, and building for Suleiman. Subhanallah. I do not think people knew about diving, until at the time of Suleiman. I think, that was another knowledge that we learned from the jinns, by the will of Allah. They were diving for sea foods, corals, pearls, and building those pyramids, and other things for Suleiman. As the ayah says, whatever Suleiman was asking the jinns to do for him, they should have followed his orders, and Allah was guarding them. Maybe Suleiman is telling us that someday we will be able to live under the water. Now, let us compare those walls that we have been looking at in different sites. In all of these ancient sites we find the same building techniques, the same huge scale of building, and the same precise orientation with the compass. Just look at them. They are very similar. They have been built by the same builders. As you know, honeybees built their hives exactly with the same pattern. So as the Suleiman's jinns, throughout the world. Let us see the walls in Egypt, Easter Island, Nazca, Cuzco, Sacsayhuaman, Peru, and Machu Picchu. Just look at them. They say, seeing is believing. Subhanallah. The similarities of these ancient sites are striking. All of these sites have in common hieroglyphics, mummified bodies, great astrological skills, earthquake-proof construction techniques. There are 9 places on Earth that they used the same technique of putting blocks together. Even when you look at the quarries, which they carved their blocks, are the same. Subhanallah. They have found out that the writings in Egypt, whose writings were hieroglyphics, are very close to Chinese hieroglyphics. And Mayans' writing was also hieroglyphics. Just imagine, there are hundreds of archaeologists, scientists, construction engineers, or so-called Egyptologists, are trying to find the answer of these mysterious places, but all in vain. Thank Allah for unveiling these awesome knowledge to us. This is amazing. There are only a few ayat in the Arabic Quran, which they talk about Dawood and Suleiman. Yet, Allah has opened up a whole new door for us. He has unveiled the mystery of these ancient buildings all around the world. Allah be glorified. Here is another awesome sign. If we draw a line with 100 km wide, from Easter Island to Giza in Egypt, and continue all around the world, which would be 25,000 miles circle, which is the Earth's circumference. And if we go from this 100 km wide circle, we will go through many significant ancient sites across the globe. In Peru, it passes through Paracas drawings, then, the Nazca tracks. Then, Ollantaytambo in Peru. Then it passes through Machu Picchu, Cuzco. And then, Sacsayhuaman. Then, Parathoari, pyramids. In Africa, it crosses Mali, and the mysterious place, called Dogon country. These people knew about the stars, before any astronomers. Then in Egypt, it goes through Siwa Oasis, and Izuzamom, temple. And then the Great Pyramid, at Giza. Next it crosses Petra, in Jordan. Then we get to Ur, where Abraham was born. Then it goes through Persepolis, in Iran. Here you can see some statues. Also Suleiman left us few signs that he was a flying king. But, through the history, the story of Dawood and Suleiman was wiped out. And now, they say, that was the sign of Zoroastrian. Then it crosses Mohenjo-Daro, in Pakistan, where the unreadable writing was found, which was so close to Easter Island writings. Then, it passes through the site, called Homes of the Gods, Khajuraho, in India. Then we get to Phayeh, in Burma. Then after Phayeh, we get to Sukhothai, in Thailand. Then, Angkor Wat, and Brawiha, in Cambodia. Then it ends in the most isolated and mysterious places on Earth, Easter Island. There is an astonishing accuracy to this alignment. They concluded that someone has been building sacred sites on this line, circling the Earth. And thank Allah we know now who did it. We will continue in the next tape, inshallah. Until then, peace.